Hey everybody, welcome back to Toyzilla's Book Club. With me, Toyzilla. Now, our video game stream ended kind of abruptly because I just don't know what happened to the setup. But it was about time to start book club anyway, so here we are. Y'all know we're reading The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Better. Get you a good view of that. Now, we're in the last couple of chapters, it seems. So we'll probably get done with this book on the next stream. But don't worry, it's a trilogy. 3 books in the series, and I got all 3 of them. So we reading all 3 of them. I hope you like it. Now, we're on chapter 53. If you aren't at this point yet, don't forget to go on the YouTube channel and read the previous chapters along with me. Or, if you have your book yourself and you just decided, you know what, I want somebody else to read for a change, then, that's what I'm here for. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 53. Red had watched her niece's progress through the fortress with mounting intolerance. The interloper, for that's all Alice was to her, just a once-coddled brat playing at a sovereign's game, had some nerve. How could Alice possibly believe herself the crown's heir? By what twisted reasoning had she convinced herself? If Genevieve should never have assumed the throne in the first place, then how could the daughter be queen? No, thought Red. She herself was and had always been the rightful monarch, and on this day she would prove it for all time. Alice stepped into the ballroom. Finally, Alice's heart in the flesh. The problem was there were 8 of her. 8 Alice hearts. Which was the real one? Do you think your little games will save you? Red spat. And from her scepter a bouquet of flesh-eating roses on a long vine shot toward one of the Alices. It passed through her without effect. A second vine of roses, their toothy mouths gnawing the air, flew at another Alice, but again, no harm done. The real Alice stood third from the left in the row of the Alices, thinking it lucky that she'd conjured her doubles because she found herself momentarily paralyzed, unexpectedly affected by the sight of Red. I can't be angry. Won't be. I conquered my anger in the maze. Must control myself. But the heat of her temper was rising. The old feelings of abandonment after her parents' deaths, the unfairness of just about everything. I don't have time to dilly-dally, Red said. Let the real Alice Hart step forward. The queen sent enough bouquets of thorny vine roses to attack all 8 Alices at once. The roses passed through 7 of them without effect. The real Alice tilted her head in a certain way, and the attacking bouquet widened up, strangled itself, withered, and died. We're family, Alice said. Red snorted. Is that supposed to mean something? Family, Alice said again, trying to convince herself more than Red. Don't talk to me about family. You were never disowned by your parents. I'd rather have been disowned by them than seen them murdered. Goody for you. Red opened her mouth and exhaled a jet of flame, out of which stomped 2 Jabberwocky, breathing shoots of fire directly at Alice. The princess diverted the flames to either side of her, and wielding the white crystal scepter, scattered the Jabberwocky into countless particles of energy. As the particles were floating and eddying in the air, fading from sight, Alice fired a series of orb generators at Red, who was not yet committing too much of her power to defending herself in order to draw Alice out and discover her strengths and weaknesses. With the attitude of a grouchy governess extinguishing candle flames, she snuffed out the orb generators before they reached her, repeatedly pinching her thumb and forefinger together in the air. Each time, zzz, an orb fizzled into non-existent. Alice could feel the heart crystal's energy radiating out to her, infusing her. It's behind the fall wall. Red, by staying close to it to realize her full strength, had ensured that Alice's powers would also be increased. Alice shot 2 orb generators at the quartz and agate mosaic, and kaboosh! It fractured apart. The red glow of the heart crystal filled the room. Red shed caution like an outgrown skin. "It's mine!" she shouted. "The crystal's mine!" She sent X-shaped blades cartwheeling toward Alice, and it was all the princess could do to avoid getting sliced or run over by them. She darted left and right and back again, but as soon as she safely avoided one batch of X-blades, more came at her. An army of weapons not needing soldiers to man them. She conjured a cocoon of white imagination around her as protection. An X-blade cartwheeled into her and knocked her to the floor. She tried blunting the blade's edges, but that didn't stop them from cartwheeling toward her. Have to get on the offensive. Still dodging the X-blades, she dealt decks of razor cards from her sleeves and a couple of cannonball spiders, but she was too taken up with defending herself to see if they had any effect. She made a fist with one hand and brought it down in the palm of her other. The cartwheeling blades fell flat on the floor, harmless. But now she had another problem, because the room was alive with enormous, heavy, black, spike-covered wheels rolling rampant. Alice wasn't slow this time. She imagined the nightmarish wheels turned into squares, and they locked in place, anchored by their floor-gouging spikes. Can't let red bombard me. Must do more than retaliate. She conjured a curious bomb, one that didn't destroy but create. It burst at Red's feet in shimmering cage of white imagination, and force alloy built itself around the queen. "You think you can contain me?" Red laughed and stepped out of the mini prison as if it weren't there. Behind her, the heart crystal no longer glowed uniformly red, but changed color constantly, from pink to white to red to a marbled red and white. Aunt and niece stood in cyclone of black and white imagination, the winds of both scolding around them, popping and sizzling, with electrical charges and lightning fragments shooting every which way. "Give me strength, heart crystal. Give me—" One of Alice's cannonball spiders must have completely missed its target, because Dodge and the cat were visible through a large, jagged hole in the wall to her right. She hardly took her eyes off Red for a millisecond, but when she turned back, a large orb was coming toward her. She conjured one of her own, and the 2 orbs collided. Whoomph! The impact sent shockwaves of displaced air reverberating throughout the room. Red stood her ground, but Alice was thrown back and slammed to the floor. How had things gotten so turned around? One moment she was on her feet, holding her own against her aunt. The next she was laid out, looking the picture of defeat. One moment Dodge was fighting the cat as an equal. The next, the cat was rearing back to lance him with a claw through the gut. Dodge defiantly facing his demise as... "Dodge!" Alice shouted. And in a reflex, she conjured an 8052 into his hand, just as something knocked her on the head. A black shroud fell over her vision, and she lost consciousness, giving Red the only advantage she needed to put an end to the upstart princess. Chapter 54. Alice awoke in her bed, cold and sweating. Prince Leopold, Mrs. Liddell, and the dean were looking down on her with expressions of mingled concern and relief. "What is this?" Alice asked, befuddled. "This," said Mrs. Liddell, "is your bed." "You're at home, dear." You've given us quite a scare, my love," said Prince Leopold. "Do you remember anything of what's happened?" "Do I remember?" She was afraid to answer. "You fainted in church and have been in some sort of delirium ever since." "No." "Impossible." "I've been in Wonderland," she said. Mrs. Liddell's face tightened. Dean Liddell cleared his throat. "Like in Carol's book?" Leopold asked good-naturedly. "It's nothing like the book." Her vehemence frightened them. She wasn't well. She was too weak to be upsetting herself so. "Alice," Miss Liddell said, "you've been very ill. Perhaps we'll let you rest." "I'll check on you shortly," the prince said. Leopold and the Liddells turned for the door. "But they can't leave. Not yet. Not when she was so confused." So she had to admit it to herself. disappointed. None of it real. The grown-up Dodge, my consultation with the blue caterpillar, the looking-glass maze. She sat upright in bed. But what is it? Asked Sadine. Have I been here this whole time? Of course. Can it all have been a fever dream? She fell back against her pillows. It was so vivid. How can it not have happened? It's a trick, Alice! Dodge shouted, appearing through the wall armed with an 8052. Whatever you're seeing, it's a construct. It isn't real. He was gone as suddenly as he'd come, back through the wall. Neither the Liddells nor Leopold had noticed the intrusion. Alice studied them more closely, and now that she knew to look for them, she could see the energy bits of which they consisted. She felt something in her hand, the white heart scepter. So Dodge is all right. He survived the cat. Indeed, facing imminent death, Dodge had not hesitated to use the 8052 when it materialized in his hand. Instead of losing his own life, he took another of the cats, leaving the beast with only one. Alice swept the construct away. The bed and furniture, the Liddells, Prince Leopold, all vanished, and she found herself on the ballroom floor at Mount Isolation. Red stood over her, swinging her scepter down to cut off her head. I'm not mad! I'm not mad! Yes, I am! With Red scepter only a few wonderland inches from her lovely neck, she blew hard at the evil queen, sending her flying backwards, and then jumped to her feet. Red was still in the air when Alice released a bolt of energy from her index finger. It latched onto Red and, wagging her finger back and forth, Alice smashed the queen against the ballroom's two remaining walls. Disoriented, Red's imaginings fizzled and faded, less and less of a threat to Alice, whose abilities seemed to be increasing in direct proportion to her confidence. Unrealistic not to be angry, to never get angry or upset. It's a matter of degree. Alice's anger informed her, but it didn't rule her, although she seemed willing to beat Red against the walls until the malicious woman died. A rather brutal death had it come to pass, but Red managed to free herself from the energy spear that held her, severing it with the pointed end of her scepter and dropping to the floor. It was Alice's turn to put her aunt on the defensive. She sent deck after deck of razor cards at Red. She conjured exploding cannonball spiders, the giant arachnids taking up all her aunt's attention. The black, hungry roses that Red sent snaking toward the princess were easily squashed. The orbs and unmanned airborne blades effortlessly waved off, and the spears of black energy. Alice was flattered, her aunt borrowing this idea from him, pinned motionless to the air by Alice's own white spears with no trouble. Both Alice and Red may have been strengthened by their proximity to the heart crystal, but Alice could see that she was the stronger of the two. It must have dawned on Red, too, because frustrated and annoyed beyond all measure, she gave up on her fancy imaginings and ran at Alice with scepter raised. They brandished their scepters like swords, two powerful warriors engaged in good old-fashioned hand-to-hand combat. The space above and around them glittered and popped and sizzled and smoked with the thunderstorms of their imaginative powers. Then, with the speed of a Gwanuke's flapping wing, Alice hooked the white heart of her scepter in a gnarled quick of Red's scepter and yanked the latter to the floor, where she exploded it with a jolt of white-hot imaginative energy. Do I kill or... But what's to be done with her if I don't? She'll pose a threat as long as she lives. Red balled her hands into fists, making fleshy clubs of them. I'm stronger than you are, Red. You will not defeat me, Red screamed. Alice braced herself for another attack, realizing only too late what was happening. She watched with disbelieving eyes as Red launched herself into the heart crystal. The crystal crackled and smoldered. It began to vibrate, to emit a low, steady hum that deepened and grew in volume. Cornered by an 80-52 armed Dodge, and with only one life remaining to him, the cat saw which way the imaginative energy was flowing. He hissed and sprinted for the crystal. dodged shot a spray of razor cards at him, but the beast was too fast and leaped into the crystal, its violent internal motions causing the entire Mount Isolation fortress to shake ominously, threatening collapse when the noise stopped. All was still. The heart crystal glowed a steady white. The faction of Allisons, headed by Generals Doppel and Ganger, had converged on the scene and, together with Hatter, Molly, and the others, had defeated the Glass Eyes. All stood dumbstruck in the silence that inevitably follows great and unexpected events. For in the Queendom's long history, no one had ever jumped into the Heart Crystal, and no one knew what it augured for the future. Well, everybody, that's the end of chapter 54. Say that's a good place to stop for now. We'll finish the rest of the book next time. If while y'all were reading, y'all made me any artwork, again, make sure y'all leave the comments below. I would love to see it and we'll show it next time. Maybe I'll put it, right over there inside of the chat. Well, my friends, until next time, if you like what you see, turn on your PC and viewed it. Toyzilla is out. Bye now.